AITA for refusing to change my wedding plans, even though it upset my family? I, 28F, have been planning my wedding with my fiancée, Alex, 30M, for the past year. From the start, I knew I wanted a small, intimate ceremony. Nothing extravagant, just our closest friends and family. Alex and I are both introverted and have never been huge on big parties, so it felt natural. We set the date for late spring and found a small, beautiful venue that fit our vision perfectly. As the planning progressed, my parents began dropping hints that they wanted more involvement than I expected. Initially, I thought they just wanted to help, which was fine. But soon, their involvement started feeling more like control. They started pushing for a bigger guest list, a more traditional venue, and even suggested hiring a wedding planner who could manage the whole event. I politely declined most suggestions, explaining that I wanted a small wedding. I told them several times that the wedding was ultimately Alex and mine, not theirs. A month ago, my mom dropped the bomb. She said that if I didn't invite at least 50 more people, including distant relatives I barely know, she would not attend the wedding. I was shocked. She said she had already been talking to these relatives, and they were expecting to be invited. She claimed it would ruin the family reputation if I went through with such a small wedding. I tried to reason with her, but she insisted, saying that I was being selfish and inconsiderate. I discussed this with Alex, and he was fully supportive of sticking to our original plan. He even offered to help speak to my family, but I wanted to try to handle it myself. I sent my mom a long message explaining that while I love my family, the wedding was not about appeasing distant relatives or maintaining appearances. I emphasized that it was our day, and we wanted it to feel genuine and meaningful for us. I told her I would be deeply hurt if she chose not to attend, but I would not change the plans. The fallout has been intense. My mom called me repeatedly, crying and accusing me of being ungrateful. She said she couldn't believe I would choose a few friends over my family. My dad initially stayed out of it, but eventually sided with her, saying that family is everything and I should consider their feelings. Some of my aunts and uncles have reached out as well, expressing disappointment and urging me to reconsider. Meanwhile, Alex's parents have been wonderful. They support our decision completely and even offer to help cover some costs if it would make our wedding more comfortable. Alex's best friend, who is also our officiant, encouraged us to stick to our vision, saying that weddings are more meaningful when they reflect the couple, not societal expectations. Things got worse when my mom posted on social media vaguely referencing a daughter choosing friends over family with a hashtag about family values. Several distant relatives who were not even invited commented, expressing shock that they weren't invited. This has created a lot of tension and pressure. Some friends have advised me to just give in to keep the peace, but I honestly feel that would betray my own wishes and Alex's. Last week, my mom sent me a long email detailing all the ways I was being disrespectful, including bringing up traditions, family honor, and even insinuating that I was trying to hurt her. I replied calmly, reiterating our decision and explaining that I love my family, but needed to do what felt right for us. After that, she blocked my number and hasn't spoken to me directly since. I'm now 2 weeks away from the wedding. Alex and I are thrilled about the day itself, but the family drama has cast a shadow over it. Some family members have said they might not attend at all because of this conflict, while others have reluctantly said they will. I'm worried about walking down the aisle and seeing tension in the room. Part of me feels guilty for standing my ground, but another part feels like if I gave in now, it would set a precedent that my wishes don't matter. I've also noticed a few friends questioning me. They asked if it's worth causing such a rift, but I feel like compromising on this would be compromising who I am. Alex has been extremely supportive and reminds me constantly that our wedding is about us, not other people's expectations. I know I'm lucky in that I have a strong support system outside my immediate family, but I can't shake the feeling that I might be doing something wrong by refusing to make my parents happy. I want them to be part of my wedding, but I also don't want to feel like I have to apologize for wanting an intimate ceremony that reflects my values and personality. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to change my wedding plans, even though it upset my family? Character count, 6,432 if you want, I can also write an alternate version with even more twists, misunderstandings, and escalating drama. The kind that often gets huge traction on Reddit and hits closer to 7,000 characters. Do you want me to do that? If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It helps the content grow and motivates me to create even more great videos. Turn on notifications so you don't miss any new uploads. By the way, I'm curious, when do you usually watch my videos? While working, studying, or just relaxing at home? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you for your support. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of a long-standing family issue? So, this is going to be long, but I need some perspective because my family thinks I'm the villain here, and honestly, I'm torn. I, 28F, have a younger sister, Emma, 25F. Growing up, our relationship was complicated. We weren't super close, mostly because our parents favored her a lot. Not in a small, oh, we love her more sometimes way, but in an almost blatant way that left me feeling invisible. They praised her constantly for everything from grades to hobbies, while my accomplishments were often overlooked or dismissed as not a big deal. Because of this, I became really independent and self-reliant, which I'm proud of, but also meant I stopped relying on my family for support. I had a lot of resentment toward them, and by extension, toward Emma, who seemed to take all the love I never got. I never said this to her growing up because, well, I didn't want to make things worse, and honestly, I figured it was easier to just distance myself emotionally. Fast forward to the present. Emma got engaged last year, and immediately, the wedding planning turned into a full-on circus. Our parents jumped in and started making comments that felt exclusionary toward me. Things like, maybe you can help with the minor stuff if you're free, or we don't want you stressing over things that don't really matter. Basically, they wanted me there as a helper, not as a guest. I expressed early on that I didn't want to take on a major planning role, but they kept insisting I should be involved because family is important. Then came the biggest issue. Emma, my sister, announced the guest list. My heart sank because, although I was technically invited, the way she structured the seating and events made it clear I wasn't really included. My parents explained that there were limited spots at the rehearsal dinner and that I could come if someone cancels. But honestly, they all seemed to imply that my presence wasn't really wanted beyond the ceremony. I tried to brush it off, thinking maybe I was reading too much into it, but my best friend pointed out that I was clearly being marginalized. I decided to talk to Emma directly. I told her I felt hurt by how my role in the wedding was being minimized and that the seating arrangements at events made me feel excluded. I also told her I didn't feel comfortable attending the wedding if I was only going to be treated as a background participant. She got really defensive, saying she had limited options and couldn't accommodate everyone's feelings, which I get in theory, but it felt like a brush-off. She also said, "You've always been dramatic about family stuff, so I'm not sure why this is a big deal." That stung because I was trying to communicate honestly without blaming her. After that, I reached out to my parents. I explained why I didn't feel comfortable attending, emphasizing that this wasn't about Emma personally, but about the dynamics I've dealt with my whole life. My dad said I was overreacting and that family occasions shouldn't be about old grudges, while my mom cried and said I was throwing away the family. At this point, I started questioning myself, but I also remembered all the times I felt invisible and excluded growing up. I tried one more time with Emma, offering a compromise. I could attend if I could have a small, meaningful role that didn't feel tokenized. She said she appreciated the offer, but that everything was already set in stone, implying that it was too late to make any changes. At that point, I told her I couldn't go. The fallout was immediate. My parents are upset, saying I've ruined the family celebration, and Emma called me crying, accusing me of punishing her for things that happened when we were kids. A couple of extended family members reached out to see if I was okay, but others have taken my absence as proof that I'm selfish or dramatic. Now I'm stuck. Part of me feels justified because I don't want to walk into a wedding where I feel invisible and hurt. I also don't want to give up my own emotional well-being for a day that seems designed to highlight my discomfort. But another part of me feels guilty for not attending my sister's big day, and I worry about long-term family relationships. I've considered going to the wedding anyway, and just staying on the periphery, but I fear that doing so would be emotionally draining and could lead to an outburst or confrontation that would make things worse. On the other hand, I know my absence will hurt Emma and my parents, at least in the short term. So Reddit, AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because I don't feel included or valued by my family, even though it will upset them and possibly strain relationships. AITA for refusing to host my niece's wedding after my brother disrespected me over a family heirloom. I, 34F, have always been the type of person who values family traditions, sometimes maybe too much. My parents passed down a few things that are really important to them and to us as a family, including a vintage silver tea set that has been in our family for over 100 years. It's not priceless in the monetary sense, but the sentimental value is enormous. I inherited it when my parents died about 5 years ago, and I've always taken care of it, polished it, displayed it carefully, and only ever used it on rare occasions. Everyone in my family knows how much it means to me. My brother, Josh, 37M, is getting married next month. When he first announced his engagement, I was thrilled. His fiancée, Lisa, 30F, seems lovely, and I wanted to help them in any way I could. I've been involved in some planning because they live out of state, and I'm closer to our extended family. But recently, something happened that has completely soured my willingness to participate in the wedding. About 2 weeks ago, Josh called me and asked if he could borrow my family silver tea set for the wedding reception. I was surprised because the wedding is taking place at a rented venue, and I didn't understand why he would need my tea set. I asked him why, and he said he wanted it for a vintage display at the reception. I told him that I wasn't comfortable with it leaving my house because it's extremely old, delicate, and extremely important to me. I even offered to bring it to the venue and stay to set it up myself, but he insisted it needed to be out of my house for the entire day. I tried to compromise and suggested perhaps renting a similar set or using something else from the venue, but he got really annoyed. He said I was being overly protective and holding my family back from celebrating in style. He even said, "It's just a tea set. Why are you acting like it's made of gold?" I reminded him that it's not about money. It's about sentimental value, and that I've already lost our parents, so I take this stuff seriously. He yelled a little at that point, saying I was making things about myself and that I'm always putting yourself first. Then it escalated. Josh started bringing up things from the past, like how I refused to lend him my car when he wanted it in college, or that I didn't help him financially when he started his business. None of these things were comparable, and they were completely irrelevant to a wedding. But he kept insisting that I was selfish and that my refusal was humiliating him in front of his future in-laws. I hung up after that because I felt like he wasn't listening and was just trying to guilt me. A few days later, I got a group text from him, his fiancée, and my parents' friends who were close to the family. They basically tried to pressure me into saying yes, saying things like, "It would mean so much to everyone," and "Don't be the one to ruin the wedding vibe." I replied politely that the tea set is too fragile for me to let leave my home unattended and offered again to transport it myself if necessary. But that was ignored. After that, Josh sent me a long message accusing me of trying to control everything about the wedding and claiming that I'm putting my ego above family. He even went as far as to say that maybe I shouldn't attend if I couldn't be supportive. I was shocked and hurt. This tea set has never caused any problems before. I've always been careful, and I've never tried to manipulate family events. I didn't respond immediately because I wanted to think it through. Then yesterday, he called and basically gave me an ultimatum. Either I hand over the tea set and let him use it however he wants, or I shouldn't attend the wedding at all. He said I had already made everyone uncomfortable enough, and that my behavior was embarrassing. I was furious at this point. It felt like he was using guilt to force me into handing over something that has enormous sentimental value and that I shouldn't be made to risk losing or damaging. I called him back and told him, calmly but firmly, that I will not let the tea set leave my home and that I would not attend the wedding if he continued trying to bully me over it. He shouted at me, saying I'm being ridiculous and that I'm turning this into a drama for no reason. After that, I hung up and blocked his number. Now, our extended family has gotten involved. Some cousins and aunts are saying I'm being stubborn and ruining Josh's big day, while others say I have every right to protect something that is literally irreplaceable to me. I feel incredibly conflicted. I want to support my brother, but I also feel like he crossed a line by disrespecting my boundaries, guilt-tripping me, and implying I should risk damaging a family heirloom to make his wedding perfect. I haven't told him yet that I won't be attending, partly because I don't want to cause a bigger fight, but I also feel like this is my line in the sand. My parents always taught me to stand up for what matters to me, and I feel like if I give in, I'll regret it forever. So Reddit, AITA for refusing to let my brother use my family silver and possibly not attending his wedding because of it. AITA for refusing to let my cousin's wedding drama ruin my family vacation. I, 32F, have always been the planner in my family. I like to organize trips, birthdays, holidays, you name it. My parents are retired and love traveling. So a few years ago, I started organizing annual family vacations. This year, we decided on a week-long trip to Italy, mostly Rome and Florence, with a few days in the countryside. Flights, accommodations, sightseeing, it was all meticulously planned, and everyone was on board. Everything was going smoothly until my cousin Sarah, 30F, announced that she was getting married. She and her fiancé had been dating for a few years, but I didn't know the wedding would suddenly become such a huge deal. She sent out a save the date the same week we were supposed to leave for Italy. She insisted that everyone in the family, including me, attend. I immediately looked at the dates and realized they directly conflicted with our trip. I spoke to my parents first. They were on the fence, but ultimately said they didn't want to cancel the trip since it was planned well in advance. I tried to reason with Sarah, telling her that we had been planning this trip for months, flights were booked, hotels reserved, and it would be really difficult and expensive to change everything. I also suggested attending either the ceremony or just sending our wishes and a gift. Sarah didn't take it well. She claimed I was selfish for prioritizing a vacation over family, said I didn't care about family milestones, and started sending passive-aggressive texts about how everyone else was going to the wedding. I reminded her that we had informed the family of our trip months ago and that I couldn't just cancel at the last minute. Her fiancé got involved, sending me messages saying it was ridiculous to put a vacation above family obligations. I didn't respond because I didn't want to escalate. Meanwhile, my parents started feeling guilty, saying maybe we should reconsider. I stayed firm because changing the trip would be a logistical nightmare and very expensive. Plus, honestly, I had been looking forward to this for a long time. Fast forward a few weeks. The trip was approaching, and Sarah was still sulking. She sent long, emotional group messages accusing me of not loving my family and claimed my parents were letting me ruin everything. My parents tried to mediate, but it mostly made everyone tense. One of my uncles even called me to say that I was choosing a vacation over family bonds. Despite all this, we went ahead with the trip. We had an incredible time in Italy, as planned. However, when we returned, the tension in the family was palpable. Sarah refused to speak to me directly, and several relatives made comments like, "We expected better," or "Maybe next time you'll reconsider family over leisure." My parents are still conflicted. They're proud of the trip, but sad that it caused a rift. Here's where it gets worse. At the wedding, my family members who attended reportedly got dragged into arguments about why I wasn't there. According to my aunt, Sarah made a speech that seemed to indirectly criticize anyone who didn't attend, calling them selfish and absent when it mattered most. This has apparently divided the family into factions. Some support Sarah, some understand my position. My reasoning is that I had a commitment that was made well in advance, and everyone agreed to it. I also try to offer alternatives, like attending part of the wedding or celebrating with Sarah before or after. I feel like this has turned into an exaggerated moral battle over something that could have been resolved more reasonably. On the flip side, I know weddings are important, and I do love my family. But at what point does personal commitment and planning take precedence? Is it unreasonable to expect the family to respect long-standing plans, even for something as important as a wedding? Since the trip, Sarah hasn't really spoken to me, and other family members have subtly, or not so subtly, expressed disappointment. My parents are trying to stay neutral, but are clearly stressed about the tension. I've tried reaching out and apologizing for any hurt feelings, but I haven't apologized for not attending because I genuinely feel I had a valid reason. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to change my family vacation for my cousin's wedding, even though it has caused ongoing tension. Character count, 6,479 if you want. I can also draft an even longer version hitting closer to 7,000 characters, with more detailed dialogue, internal thoughts, and the Italy trip events woven in. It would feel even more like the top-voted AITA posts. Do you want me to do that? AITA for refusing to let my brother's fiancé handle my mother's funeral arrangements? This is going to be long, so bear with me. My mother, who I'll call Karen, passed away unexpectedly last month. She was 67, had some health issues, but nothing that indicated it would be so sudden. I'm her only child, and I've been pretty much her primary caregiver for the past few years, even though I live about an hour away. My brother, Sam, is 10 years younger than me and lives in a different state. He's always been a bit unreliable when it comes to family obligations, but he's generally good with words and charm. Over the years, my mother grew fond of him, though she often relied on me for the heavy lifting, both emotionally and practically. When my mother passed, I was devastated, but also suddenly thrust into the role of executor for her estate and, more immediately, organizing her funeral. I called Sam as soon as I could, and he said he would fly in for the funeral. I also had to deal with the practical side of things, contacting the funeral home, scheduling the service, notifying distant relatives, and handling my mother's digital accounts and paperwork. It was overwhelming, and honestly, I felt like I was on autopilot for the first week. Here's where the problem started. Sam came in with his fiancée. Let's call her Emily. I barely know Emily. She's been in Sam's life for about a year and was always nice enough, but I never really interacted with her outside of holidays. The first red flag was when Sam announced that Emily had a lot of experience planning events and could take over the funeral arrangements. I politely said that I was still trying to sort things out and that I wanted to handle it myself, but Sam shrugged it off. He said Emily had connections with florists and catering services and insisted that she could help make the funeral perfect. I tried to let them help in small ways, like addressing some invitations and choosing music, but Emily immediately started making major decisions. She suggested we hire a specific funeral home because they have prettier chapels, even though my mother had already made arrangements with another one that I had confirmed. She started drafting a guest list and sending out messages to family without consulting me. She even criticized the decorations I had chosen, claiming they were too dull and wouldn't honor her memory properly. At first, I tried to brush it off, thinking maybe she was just nervous and wanted to contribute. But then she started telling me I was too controlling and letting grief cloud my judgment. It all came to a head when she suggested changing the service entirely from what my mother would have wanted. Emily proposed a themed funeral, including a catered brunch and a live singer for some pop songs my mother never liked. I tried to explain that my mother was a very traditional person and that she would have wanted a simple service at the local chapel with family and close friends. Emily literally rolled her eyes and said, "Sometimes you have to let go of tradition to celebrate a life." At that point, I snapped. I told her firmly that the service would be exactly what my mother wanted, no exceptions. Sam looked uncomfortable but didn't intervene, and Emily got visibly upset. Over the next few days, Emily became increasingly difficult. She made passive-aggressive comments about my control issues to other relatives, and Sam mostly stayed silent. I had to constantly reiterate that I was in charge of the arrangements, and even then, she would go behind my back, calling vendors and making changes I didn't approve. My aunt confronted me at one point, saying, "Maybe you should let Emily handle it. She seems so helpful," which made me feel frustrated and unsupported. Finally, I had a heart-to-heart with Sam. I told him that Emily's behavior was making an already painful situation worse, and that I needed him to back me up. He said he understood, but Emily immediately overheard and started crying, claiming I was excluding her and not trusting her at all. My brother didn't argue with her, and it felt like I was the villain in everyone's eyes for standing up. The funeral itself was actually fine. I managed to stick to my mother's wishes, and most of the family seemed grateful for the traditional approach she would have wanted. Emily, however, refused to speak to me directly during the service, and instead whispered complaints to Sam. After the funeral, when we were dividing up my mother's belongings, she criticized me again for being dramatic and not letting go. She even tried to take a few of my mother's personal items that I had promised to keep. I had to ask her to leave my house because I couldn't tolerate her behavior anymore. Now, Sam is upset with me. He said I overreacted and hurt Emily's feelings, even though I didn't prevent her from attending the service or participating in any way she felt comfortable. He keeps saying I should have compromised more, but I genuinely feel like letting her dictate the arrangements would have disrespected my mother's memory. Some relatives are divided. Some think I was right to stick to my mother's wishes, while others think I was too harsh on Emily, especially since she seemed eager to help. I'm left feeling exhausted, sad, and a bit guilty because my brother and his fiancée are now distant, and I wonder if I handled things correctly. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to let my brother's fiancée take over my mother's funeral arrangements, even though she insisted she was just trying to help. Character count, 6,412. AITA for refusing to give my brother's girlfriend a free pass to my wedding. I, 28F, am getting married next year to my fiancé, Ben, 30M. We've been together for 7 years, and I'm genuinely excited about this next step in our lives. Planning a wedding has been more stressful than I ever imagined, mostly because of family dynamics, guest lists, and expectations. But nothing prepared me for the drama surrounding my brother and his girlfriend, which is why I need some perspective. So a bit of context. My brother, Jason, 32M, has been dating his girlfriend, Melissa, 29F, for almost a year. I'll be honest, I've never really liked Melissa. I'm generally not someone who dislikes people without cause, but she's manipulative, entitled, and really passive-aggressive. She has a habit of inserting herself into conversations and situations and always find a way to make herself the victim when things don't go her way. My brother, unfortunately, is kind of spineless around her, so he doesn't see it. Back to the wedding. I sent out a preliminary guest list to my parents, and they insisted that Jason should bring Melissa because it's his girlfriend. I told them I would consider it, but I was setting a firm limit. I don't want someone I don't get along with causing tension at my wedding. My parents, of course, called me unreasonable, saying weddings are about family and compromise. Fast forward a few weeks. Jason approaches me and says Melissa is insisting she attend the bachelorette party, even though she's not a bridesmaid and isn't part of my close circle of friends. I told him straight up, the bachelorette is for my friends and bridal party. If you want Melissa to come, she can organize her own outing with your friends. He seemed upset, but didn't push too hard. Then the real issue began. Jason sends me a message saying, Melissa says she doesn't understand why she can't be included in the wedding ceremony photos and seating plan, and it's humiliating for her. You should just let her in. Everyone will understand. I was baffled. Humiliating? This is my wedding, not a public service announcement for her feelings. I calmly explained that the wedding seating and photos are being planned for family and people who have a relationship with me, not just my brother's girlfriend. She doesn't have a relationship with me. She met me a handful of times. I told him, I'm sorry if Melissa feels left out, but the wedding is not about her. Jason responded, and I quote, You're being unfair. You're punishing her for no reason. Can't you just be nice? She's been nothing but supportive. I realized this was going nowhere, so I decided to lay down the rules clearly. Here's the thing. My wedding is going to be relatively small, about 120 people, mostly immediate family and close friends. I can't invite everyone my brother dates, and I shouldn't have to. I told Jason that Melissa could attend the wedding, but she needed to understand that she would not be treated like part of the bridal party. She would not have special seating, and she would not be involved in any pre-wedding events unless explicitly invited. This did not sit well with him. He started guilt-tripping me with messages like, You're going to make my girlfriend feel unwelcome at your own wedding. This isn't about you. It's about being a good sister. At one point, he said, If you don't give her a free pass, I might not come to the wedding. I honestly laughed at that because it sounded ridiculous. I reminded him that it's my wedding, and I will not use my wedding as a bargaining chip for his girlfriend's ego. I even offered a compromise. Melissa can attend the ceremony and reception, but she will be seated with Jason and his friends in a corner of the reception hall and will not be in the photos. I thought that was more than reasonable. He went off. He sent a long paragraph about how every family accommodates each other's partners and how I was isolating her and controlling everyone's happiness. He even involved my parents, who messaged me saying, "We think you're overreacting." Melissa is part of the family now. I explained that she's not married to Jason. They aren't engaged, and being part of the family does not mean she gets a VIP pass at my wedding. My parents were silent after that, probably realizing this isn't an issue of generosity, but boundaries. The tension has only grown. Melissa now posts passive-aggressive stories on social media, tagging me indirectly, saying things like, "Some people just don't like me, but that's okay." Jason keeps forwarding them to me with, "See what you're doing." Ben thinks I'm being completely reasonable. He agrees that inviting her, as if she were family or a close friend, would cause more stress and drama. My friends are split. Some say I should just let it go to avoid family tension, but others see it the same way I do. She's manipulating her way into a wedding she doesn't have a place in. At this point, I'm sticking to my guns. Melissa will be at the wedding, but she won't get any special treatment. I feel like my brother is prioritizing his girlfriend's feelings over mine, and it's frustrating because it's supposed to be my day. I also feel like if I give in, it will open the door for more ridiculous demands in the future. So Reddit, AITA for refusing to give my brother's girlfriend a free pass to my wedding, treating her like she's part of the inner circle when she's clearly not. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after she banned my partner from the event. This has been a mess for months, and I still don't know if I'm in the wrong here. I'm 28, and my sister, Megan, is 31. We've always had a complicated relationship, mostly bickering as kids, but generally supportive as adults. Megan is getting married in a few weeks, and the lead up to the wedding has been intense, to say the least. My partner, Alex, and I have been together for 4 years. Alex is kind, thoughtful, and generally avoids drama. Megan, however, has always been extremely controlling and has very strong opinions about everything, especially anything that touches her weddings or other major life events. I was excited when she got engaged and initially thought this would be a chance for us to have fun planning something together, but things quickly went sideways. About 6 months ago, Megan casually mentioned that Alex's vibe didn't really fit with her vision for the wedding. At first, I brushed it off as Megan being dramatic because, honestly, she has very particular tastes. But it escalated. She started telling me that Alex wasn't allowed to attend because he had a friend group she didn't like, and she felt they were too loud and disruptive. I was shocked and asked her why she was making this a thing. She said it wasn't negotiable and that she had every right to decide who could attend her wedding. She even went as far as sending me a long email where she listed reasons she didn't want Alex there, ranging from minor disagreements in the past to entirely fabricated claims about how he behaves around her friends and family. Some of it was completely untrue, like that Alex once publicly embarrassed her at a brunch. That brunch had happened years ago, and he had literally just spilled coffee accidentally. I tried reasoning with her. I told her that Alex is my partner and that I couldn't attend a wedding without him. I asked if we could meet halfway, like having Alex there, but not sit at a particular table or anything. She refused. She said it was about the energy of the room and that everyone else agrees. I even offered to cover any perceived costs if she thought Alex's presence would be an issue, but she kept repeating that he wasn't welcome. This is where it got worse. Megan started bringing this up with our parents. She said, and I quote, "If Alex is there, I don't want my sister there either." My parents, who were usually neutral, got caught up in the drama. They tried to convince me to leave Alex at home, which I found insulting. I explained repeatedly that Alex isn't an accessory. He's my life partner, and leaving him out of such a major family event would be emotionally damaging for both of us. My parents eventually stopped arguing, but made passive comments every time the wedding came up, which just made the tension worse. Meanwhile, Megan has been very public about her guest list. She's sending out invites and posting hints about her exclusive wedding. A few of our mutual friends reached out to me privately, saying that Megan has been talking about Alex in a negative light and that it's becoming the big family drama. I tried to ignore the gossip, but it's stressful when even people outside the immediate family are aware that something is wrong. About 2 months ago, I finally made my decision. I told Megan that I couldn't attend the wedding without Alex. She responded angrily, saying that it was a selfish choice and that I was choosing my partner over family, which is a phrase she has repeated multiple times to anyone who will listen. She also threatened not to invite me to any future family events if I prioritize Alex over family tradition. That felt manipulative, and it solidified my decision. I sent her a message stating that I wouldn't be attending her wedding and that I hoped she could understand why. I emphasized that I love her and wanted to celebrate her, but I could not do so without Alex. Her reaction was explosive. She called me immature, selfish, and accused me of ruining the wedding mood. She also blocked me on social media. Our parents are upset, mostly because they didn't want to deal with the conflict, and some extended family members have started pressuring me, asking me to reconsider and just be the bigger person. Since then, I've had several friends tell me I might be overreacting, and a few have suggested that maybe I should compromise to preserve family harmony. I get that, but here's what makes me question myself. Alex has never done anything inappropriate, and I think the real issue is Megan's need for total control. But is it unreasonable to skip a sibling's wedding? Am I being too rigid? I feel trapped because I also don't want to let Megan dictate who I can or cannot bring into my life, but I'm starting to feel guilty about not being there for her big day. I don't want to start a family feud, and I hope this doesn't permanently damage our relationship. But right now, attending without Alex feels impossible. I keep going over every angle, and I still can't tell if I'm the jerk. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because she banned my partner from the event? AITA for refusing to let my sister stay at my house after she suddenly moved back to town and brought her entire family? I, 34 am, live in a modest 3-bedroom house in a suburban area. I work from home as a software engineer, and my life is structured around a relatively quiet routine. I've always valued personal space and stability, and over the years, I've become pretty particular about my living environment. I have my girlfriend, Jenna, 32F, who's very understanding about my quirks and habits, and we enjoy a fairly low-key lifestyle. My younger sister, Emma, 28F, has always been more of a free spirit. She's spontaneous, loud, and chaotic in a way that can be fun but also exhausting. Over the years, she's bounced between cities for work, relationships, and just life. She's always had a habit of showing up unannounced or expecting people to accommodate her, and honestly, it strained our relationship at times. A few weeks ago, I got a call from Emma out of the blue. She sounded stressed and panicked. She explained that her lease in another city fell through and she had nowhere to go. She had a husband, Mark, 30M, and their 2 kids, ages 4 and 2, and suddenly she was expecting me to help her out. She implied that she would be staying at my place for an indefinite period until she got her life back together. I was taken aback because, first, this wasn't a short-term visit. She was basically moving in, and second, she gave no notice or discussion. I tried to reason with her. I explained that my house isn't set up for 5 people living comfortably. My second bedroom is small, and the third room is my home office. Jenna and I also have a routine that's hard to maintain with extra people around. I suggested alternative solutions. She could stay in a nearby Airbnb temporarily, or I could help her find a short-term rental. I even offered to drive down to help her pack or search for options. Emma got upset and accused me of being selfish. She said I always care more about your routine than family, and that I was choosing a stranger, Jenna, over your own sister and her kids. She started saying that Mark and the kids would have nowhere to sleep, that they were in a desperate situation, and implied I was morally obligated to take them in. I held my ground. I told her that I couldn't host her family indefinitely because it would create a huge disruption. I also mentioned that my home insurance and lease agreements technically don't cover long-term stays for more than one unrelated family. I tried to keep it practical and calm, but Emma got increasingly emotional. She kept texting me daily, calling multiple times a day, and even leaving messages demanding I figure something out. The tipping point was when she actually showed up at my house unannounced. She had packed their entire apartment into 2 SUVs. Mark and the kids were with her. She expected me to let them in, as if it was a given. I opened the door, told her firmly that this was not acceptable and that I had already explained the situation. She started crying and shouted that I was kicking out family in need. Jenna was furious because this confrontation happened in front of her, and our neighbor's children were peeking through the fence. Emma refused to leave initially. Mark tried to mediate, saying they'd only stay a night or two. I explained again that even one night is problematic because the house isn't equipped for 5 extra people, and my work and routine would be completely disrupted. Finally, after an hour, they left, but the tension escalated. Emma has been texting me nonstop, guilt-tripping me, saying things like, "I thought you'd help your own sister," and "You're supposed to be family." She's also made subtle digs in group chats and even called my parents, framing me as someone who turns my back on family. Since then, I felt torn. Part of me understands that Emma is in a difficult situation, but another part feels like she completely disregarded my boundaries and expects me to prioritize her crisis over my household and mental health. I've offered logistical help, helping find rentals, temporary housing, even pitching in financially, but she interprets it as me being cold. Jenna supports my decision completely, but my parents are upset with me. They said I should have at least let them stay a few nights, but I genuinely believe it would have been a disaster. My neighbors would have noticed, my work schedule would have been disrupted, and honestly, I don't think living in my house with them would have been sustainable without a huge amount of stress and resentment. Friends are split. Some say I'm being rigid and unsympathetic, while others say I'm justified in protecting my home and boundaries. Emma has made it clear that she might avoid me for a long time because she feels hurt. So, AITA for refusing to let my sister and her family move into my house when she suddenly moved back to town? Hey friends, if you enjoy this content, don't forget to like the video and share your thoughts in the comments. We really want to know what you like and what can be improved. What do you think of the video? Are there any topics you'd like to see in future videos? Your feedback really helps us get better. Thanks for being with us. AITA for refusing to host my sister's wedding after she asked me to pay for part of it. I, 32F, have always been close to my younger sister, 28F, at least until recently. Growing up, we shared a room, fought over stupid things, and then made up instantly. Our parents were strict, so we leaned on each other a lot. I got married 5 years ago, and my husband and I have been pretty fortunate financially. I work in tech and have been able to buy a house, take vacations, and generally live comfortably without relying on anyone. My sister, on the other hand, has had a more turbulent life. She's brilliant and creative, but she's also impulsive with money and often lives paycheck to paycheck despite a decent salary. Our parents have always been worried about this, and while they help her sometimes, it's never enough to offset her financial habits. So here's where things started to unravel. About 6 months ago, my sister got engaged. Her fiancé, 29M, is a nice guy, steady job, very kind. I was genuinely happy for them. When they first started talking about the wedding, she mentioned wanting a big, extravagant event. I asked how they planned to fund it, and she casually said, "Well, we're hoping you can help with some of it." I laughed at first, thinking she was joking. When she clarified, I realized she wasn't. She wanted me to cover at least a third of the total cost. To put it in context, her wedding budget was around $60,000. She was expecting me to contribute $20,000. That's not small change, and honestly, I couldn't even imagine spending that much on someone else's wedding. I told her gently that I was happy to help in smaller ways. Maybe help with the venue search or offer my house for a pre-wedding party, but I couldn't finance a third of the wedding. She looked shocked, and our conversation ended awkwardly. Things stayed tense for a few weeks. She would bring up the wedding constantly on group chats with our parents, subtly reminding everyone how much she wanted a fair share of funding from the family. Our parents tried to mediate, suggesting maybe I could cover a portion of the cake or flowers, but I stood my ground. Fast forward to last month, she sent me a formal email with a detailed breakdown of all the wedding expenses, highlighting which parts she thought I should cover. She even included her budget shortfall calculations. I couldn't believe it. She was expecting me to pay for not just portions of the venue and catering, but also for photography, the DJ, and even part of the honeymoon. I replied firmly, but politely, saying I wasn't comfortable covering any of the wedding costs beyond personal gifts or helping with planning logistics. This is when things escalated. She texted me, saying I was being selfish and unfamily-like, and that my refusal meant I didn't care about her happiness. Our parents got involved and told me I should at least compromise and pay something, since it was my sister's big day. I explained that $20,000 was not something I could just compromise on. It's a huge sum, and I'm under no obligation to fund an adult's wedding. They didn't seem to understand. The turning point came last week. She sent me a long message demanding that I either pay my share or she wouldn't have me involved in the wedding at all. She said she didn't want me around if I was going to be so greedy, and that our relationship might be over if I didn't contribute. I was shocked. At this point, I was done trying to reason with her. I replied that I would not be contributing financially, and since she had made it clear she didn't want me involved otherwise, I would not attend the wedding or participate in any pre-wedding events. After I sent that message, my parents called me, furious. They accused me of ruining the family and said that I was being dramatic. My husband reminded me that while it was a sensitive situation, I had every right to refuse. I feel like my sister is punishing me for having boundaries, but my parents think I'm overreacting and should be more supportive. The rest of my family is split. My aunts and uncles think I'm right not to be forced into paying, while some cousins say I'm cold for not even showing up to her wedding. My sister has gone on social media hinting that she's disappointed in some family members, which is clearly about me. I've tried to stay neutral publicly and not get into drama, but privately, it's been very stressful. I am honestly torn. On one hand, I don't want to ruin our relationship entirely, but on the other hand, I feel like I shouldn't have to sacrifice my financial stability for her wedding. It's becoming more than just a money issue. It's now about respect, boundaries, and my own autonomy. I'm posting here because I need perspective. AITA for refusing to financially contribute to my sister's wedding and for choosing not to attend when she said I couldn't participate otherwise. Character count, 6,357 if you want. I can also draft an even longer version closer to 7,000 characters that adds more family dynamics, backstory, and subtle tension like the viral Reddit stories. It would read almost like a mini novel. Do you want me to do that? AITA for refusing to let my sister's boyfriend live with us, even though he claims he's just between places. I, 28F, live with my younger sister, Lily, 25F, in a small 2-bedroom apartment we rent together. We've been roommates for about 3 years now, and it's been mostly smooth. I'm the type of person who likes my space and my routine, and Lily is more easygoing and social. We've always been honest with each other about our boundaries, bills, and chores, which has kept our relationship good. The problem started when Lily started dating someone new about 6 months ago. His name is Jake, and from the beginning, I didn't really vibe with him. He's loud, messy, and kind of manipulative in ways I couldn't quite put my finger on. Lily, however, was smitten and kept assuring me that I'd like him if I just gave him a chance. I tried to, but things started to escalate quickly. About 2 months into their relationship, Jake mentioned in passing that he had nowhere stable to live at the moment. He had supposedly been between places since moving out of his parents' house and was staying with a friend who had just kicked him out. Lily casually said, "We could let him crash here for a couple of weeks, just until he gets on his feet." I immediately said no. I explained that our apartment is small, we barely have room for the two of us, and adding another person, even temporarily, would create chaos. I offered alternatives like helping him look for a cheap sublet or a hostel, but Lily got frustrated and said I was being cold and unhelpful. A couple of weeks later, Jake brought it up again, this time more seriously. He said he didn't want to be a burden, but he really had no other option, and that Lily had already told him it might be okay. I told him directly that I did not consent to him living here. He argued that it would only be a month or so and that I'd get used to it. I stood firm, and that night, I locked my bedroom door for the first time since moving in together. Lily was visibly upset and cried, telling me that I was choosing my comfort over her relationship and that if I really cared about her, I would help the people she cares about. I felt bad, but I also felt like my boundaries were being completely disregarded. A few weeks passed, and Jake started coming over for extended periods anyway. He'd hang around our apartment for several hours after work, leave his stuff everywhere, and occasionally sleep on the couch overnight. I tried bringing it up politely, saying things like, "I'm okay with you visiting, but I'm not okay with you staying over all the time," but Lily dismissed it as me being antisocial. The situation came to a head last week. I got home from work late and found Jake asleep on the couch, and the apartment was a mess. There were dirty dishes everywhere, his gym bag in the middle of the living room, and the smell of fast food lingering. I snapped and told him he could not stay here and needed to leave immediately. Lily exploded, screaming at me in front of him that I was ruining her relationship and that I had no right to dictate who she brings home. I stayed calm but firm, and Jake packed his things and left that night. The aftermath has been rough. Lily has barely spoken to me since, except to give one-word answers or passive-aggressively leave the apartment door open when she leaves. She keeps posting things on social media about being so stressed with all the people who don't support your loved ones and boundaries that aren't really boundaries. Some mutual friends have reached out, suggesting that maybe I overreacted or that I should give Jake a chance because he's her boyfriend. Here's the thing. I'm not opposed to helping friends or family in real emergencies. But I feel like Jake's situation was not an emergency that required me to give up my personal space and peace for months. Lily, however, frames it as me being selfish and unsupportive. I also feel like it sets a precedent. If I give in once, I'll be expected to keep tolerating it whenever she or anyone she dates has nowhere else to go. I've tried talking to Lily calmly, explaining my perspective, but she refuses to engage in a constructive conversation. She just says, "You're making this about you instead of us." I honestly feel trapped because I can't enforce rules about our apartment without being accused of being controlling or cold. I want to maintain our relationship and keep living here peacefully, but I don't want to compromise my boundaries to the point of resentment. I also don't want Jake to come over uninvited and make our apartment feel like his. So, Reddit, am I the asshole for refusing to let my sister's boyfriend live with us, even temporarily, given that our apartment is small and our boundaries are being ignored? Or am I justified in standing my ground, even if it strains my relationship with Lily? Character count. 6,574 if you want. I can draft 2 more variations of similar length stories with different relationship dynamics, keeping the same popular Reddit AITA storytelling style. That could give you a small series of viral style stories. Do you want me to do that? AITA for refusing to let my mother babysit my newborn because of her past behavior. I, 30F, recently had my first child, a baby boy named Liam. I've been overjoyed but also completely exhausted, which I expected. The issue is with my mother, Karen, and whether she should be allowed to babysit. On the surface, it seems simple. Grandparents often want to help. But this is way more complicated than that, and my husband, Ethan, 32M, and I have been arguing over it for weeks. To give some context, my mom has always had controlling tendencies. She loves to insert herself into situations under the guise of helping. Over the years, she's made passive-aggressive comments about everything from my career to my relationships. When I was in high school, she forced me to attend a summer camp I didn't want to go to, and as an adult, she often tries to manipulate situations so that she gets her way. I always try to brush it off, but now that I have a child, some of her tendencies feel more concerning. During my pregnancy, I tried to involve her moderately. She came to appointments sometimes, helped with setting up the nursery, and even threw me a small baby shower. But she made a lot of comments that rubbed me the wrong way. For example, she kept telling me I was overreacting to pregnancy symptoms, implying I was dramatic, and suggested that I should toughen up if I wanted to be a good mom. Ethan noticed and reminded me that her comments were not okay, but I didn't want to start fights with my family. The real issue started a week after Liam was born. I asked my mom if she wanted help with some household chores while I rested, and she immediately turned it into a power struggle. She told me she would only help if she could take charge of Liam's schedule. She claimed that she had more experience and that I was too anxious to handle a newborn properly. She then made Ethan feel guilty by telling him that he needed to support her, even though we had agreed as a couple on Liam's care plan. It escalated when she suggested babysitting for a few hours while I took a nap. I said I prefer to wait a few weeks until I felt more comfortable leaving Liam with anyone, including family. She became passive-aggressive and told me that I was rejecting family love and treating her like a stranger. When I didn't change my mind, she posted on social media about being the world's most supportive grandmother and that she was waiting for the chance to spoil Liam. It felt manipulative, and I blocked her from seeing the posts. Things got worse a few days later. I left Liam with her for only 30 minutes while I ran to the store, thinking it was low risk. When I returned, she had given Liam a bottle she prepared herself, even though I had asked her not to give him formula yet, and he spit it out. She laughed it off and said, "He just needs to get used to it." I was furious because this was exactly why I didn't feel ready to leave him with her. Ethan supported me, and we agreed that she would not babysit unsupervised. Since then, she's been texting constantly, complaining that I don't trust her and accusing me of being a bad mother for rejecting her help. She has threatened to stop seeing Liam if I don't change my mind and told other family members that I am overreacting and too controlling. It's causing tension with everyone because my dad and some relatives think I should just let her babysit and smooth things over. I've tried explaining to my mom that I need time and that our priority is Liam's safety and well-being. I even suggested supervised visits at the house, but she said that was insulting and refused. She also brought up her experience raising me and my brother as evidence that she knows best, which only frustrates me more. I don't want to alienate my family, but I also don't want to compromise my child's care. Ethan says I'm right to set boundaries, but I keep feeling guilty. Family members keep messaging me, asking why I'm being so harsh and suggesting that my son will miss out on a close relationship with his grandmother if I don't let her babysit. My mom herself has said things like, "You'll regret this when Liam doesn't have a bond with me." I'm honestly torn because I love my mom, and I do want her to have a relationship with Liam, but I can't ignore the red flags. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to let my mother babysit my newborn because of her past controlling behavior and boundary issues. I keep going back and forth, wondering if I'm overreacting or if I'm justified in wanting to protect my child and maintain my own sanity. AITA for refusing to pay for my brother's wedding after he demanded I cover part of it. I, 31M, have always been relatively close to my younger brother, Ryan, 28M, but our relationship has had its ups and downs. Growing up, he was the kind of kid who always expected handouts and favors, and as adults, that tendency hasn't completely disappeared. I have a stable job in finance and have managed to save a decent amount of money over the years, whereas Ryan has had a history of moving between jobs and living paycheck to paycheck. Recently, Ryan got engaged to his fiancée, Amanda, 27F. When they started talking about wedding plans, I offered support and advice like any older sibling would. I wasn't expecting to be asked for money, and at first, it seemed like everything was under control financially. They wanted a relatively simple wedding, which was a relief, but things escalated quickly. About 2 months after the engagement announcement, Ryan called me out of the blue. He said, "Hey, so we've been crunching numbers, and we're a little short. Since you're doing well, we're hoping you could help cover the venue and catering costs." I was stunned. I hadn't expected to be asked to pay for anything, and I certainly hadn't budgeted for a wedding I wasn't part of financially. I asked how much they needed, and Ryan said roughly $15,000, split between the two of us. I laughed nervously and said, "Ryan, that's a lot of money. I can't just hand over that kind of cash without some planning." He immediately got defensive, saying, "Come on, it's your brother's big day. Don't you want me to have a nice wedding?" I told him I wanted him to have a nice wedding too, but that expecting me to cover almost half the cost was unreasonable. He insisted that it was normal for siblings to contribute significantly, and Amanda chimed in via text, saying they had everyone else covered and that it just made sense for me to help. I tried negotiating. I offered to pay for specific parts if they needed help, like contributing to the photographer or maybe the cake, something modest and within reason. They both dismissed this and said it wasn't enough, that they needed someone to handle the big costs. I finally said no. I explained that I had my own financial responsibilities, rent bills, saving for a house, and that $15,000 wasn't something I could just give away. Ryan blew up. He accused me of being selfish, of not supporting my family, and even said I was more concerned about my gadgets and lifestyle than helping my own brother. Amanda started posting about how families should support each other no matter what on social media, tagging me indirectly. Suddenly, I was being painted as the villain to our entire friend group and extended family. My parents got involved. They were disappointed and tried to mediate. They said I should at least contribute something substantial to keep the peace and avoid family drama. I explained again that I had already offered reasonable help and that I wasn't being unreasonable in refusing to pay tens of thousands of dollars. They were frustrated and said I was letting them down, which hurt because I genuinely wanted Ryan to have a beautiful wedding. I just couldn't foot the bill he expected. The situation escalated further when Ryan started implying he might exclude me from certain wedding activities if I didn't contribute. He suggested I might not get a speaking role, might not be in the wedding photos, and generally implied that the family spotlight would be withheld. I told him I wouldn't let money dictate my involvement and that I still intended to celebrate with him, but that I couldn't be manipulated financially. Since then, our interactions have been tense. He barely speaks to me, and family gatherings are awkward. Friends are divided. Some say I should just pay to avoid conflict, while others say I'm justified in setting boundaries. I've been accused of being ungrateful and uncaring, but I feel like I'm the one being responsible by not putting myself in financial danger. The main points of contention seem to be, Ryan genuinely needs help, but he expects me to cover nearly half the wedding. I offered alternative forms of assistance, but he and Amanda rejected them, and the family is pressuring me to comply. I don't want to cut off my brother completely, but I also don't want to be guilt-tripped into making a massive financial sacrifice I can't afford. I love my brother, and I want him to have a great wedding, but I also believe it's unreasonable to demand $15,000 from someone who is already financially responsible for their own life. I'm not sure if I'm the asshole here or if I'm just standing my ground. So, AITA for refusing to pay for my brother's wedding after he demanded I cover part of it. AITA for refusing to host my sister's wedding at my house, even though she said it would only be a small thing. I, 32F, have always had a complicated relationship with my younger sister, Emily, 28F. Growing up, we were close at times, but as adults, our personalities clash a lot. I'm very organized and private, while Emily is spontaneous and a bit dramatic. Our differences have caused tension before, but I try to maintain a cordial relationship. A few months ago, Emily got engaged to her fiancé, Mark, and she immediately started talking about her wedding plans. I was happy for her, of course, and offered to help in any way I could. Emily said she wanted a small, intimate wedding, and jokingly mentioned she'd love to have it at my house. At first, I laughed it off because my house is not huge. It's a modest 3-bedroom, 2-bath home with a small backyard, but I didn't think she was serious. A week later, she called me and said she had really thought about it and was serious about hosting her wedding at my place. She described it as just 30 to 40 people, nothing fancy. I started doing the mental math. Parking, seating, food, decorations, the stress of having 30-plus people in my house, plus the cleanup afterward. I expressed my hesitation and explained that my home isn't suitable for that kind of event and that it would cause a lot of stress for me. Emily got upset. She said that hosting at my house would save a lot of money and that I'm being ridiculous because it's a small wedding. I tried to compromise by offering to help her find a small venue nearby, help with decorations, or even cover part of a rental space if cost was an issue. She declined every suggestion and insisted that my house is perfect because it has sentimental value. We grew up there. At this point, I tried to set boundaries. I told her I love her, I want her to have a wonderful wedding, but it's not something I'm comfortable hosting. I offered to help in other ways, but made it clear my answer was final. Then things escalated. Emily started calling me selfish and ungrateful. She reminded me that our parents had hosted all sorts of family events at this house when we were kids and implied I'm not family-oriented anymore. She said that by refusing, I'm ruining her special day and making her feel unwelcome in her own family. She even brought my parents into it, and they started pressuring me as well. My parents said I'm being too rigid and that hosting her wedding would only be a one-time thing and that I should sacrifice for my sister. I stayed firm and reiterated that it's not about being unwilling to help, but about the practicalities and my own comfort. Hosting 30-plus people in my home would mean weeks of preparation, rearranging furniture, dealing with parking for neighbors, and cleaning for days afterward. I also work from home, and hosting a wedding would make it nearly impossible to manage my job during the lead-up. Emily's fiancé, Mark, eventually messaged me privately and said he understands my position and supports me, but Emily refuses to listen to him. He's tried to mediate, explaining that the idea of hosting it at my house came from Emily's imagination and that he doesn't want me to feel obligated. Emily, however, is convinced that I'm ruining her wedding experience. The situation has now gotten tense enough that family gatherings are awkward. My parents keep bringing up family unity and supporting Emily, and I'm starting to feel like I'm being punished for saying no. I've tried multiple times to offer alternatives, like hosting a small engagement party at my house, helping her find a venue, or even contributing financially to a rental space, but nothing satisfies her. I love my sister, but I also feel like my boundaries are being completely ignored. Hosting a wedding at my house is not just inconvenient. It feels intrusive and stressful in a way that I'm not comfortable with. I want to support Emily, but I also have to protect my home and my mental health. So Reddit, am I the asshole for refusing to host my sister's wedding at my house, even though she insists it would be just a small thing? AITA for refusing to pay for my sister's wedding after she asked me to cover part of it, and then publicly embarrass me? I, 29F, have a sister, Lily, 31F, and we have always had a complicated relationship. Growing up, she was very competitive, often comparing our accomplishments, our appearances, and even our social circles. Our parents try to mediate, but honestly, it has always felt like Lily has a knack for making everything about herself, sometimes at the expense of everyone else. Despite this, I love her and have always tried to support her in her life milestones, even when I felt uncomfortable. Earlier this year, Lily got engaged to Mark, 32M. From the start, she began talking about how dreamy she wanted her wedding to be. When she invited me over for coffee, she casually mentioned that she and Mark had a certain budget, and since I have a stable job and no kids, she thought it would be fair for me to contribute to the wedding. She didn't exactly phrase it as a request. It was more like, "We really want this to be special, and we're hoping you'll chip in." The amount was substantial, $500, which she claimed would cover part of the catering and decor. I was taken aback. I've been paying off student loans and recently moved into my own apartment, so my budget is tight. I politely explained that I could help with small things, like buying decorations or helping with invitations, but I couldn't contribute thousands of dollars. She smiled and said she understood, but the next day, she sent me a list of specific things she expected me to cover with costs attached and tagged me in group chats with friends asking for their financial support too. I felt manipulated. I told her firmly that I could not contribute the money, and I tried to suggest other ways to help, like coordinating with vendors, assisting with seating arrangements, and helping her make DIY decorations. She was not happy. She said that my refusal was selfish and not supportive of family. I reminded her that family support doesn't have to mean emptying my bank account and that helping emotionally and physically is still valid. Things escalated when she started hinting to our extended family that I wasn't invested in her happiness. Invitations went out, and she included a note about a suggested contribution, which I found out included my name and the amount she expected from me. My parents were caught in the middle. They asked me to just pay for family harmony, but I stood my ground. About 2 weeks before the wedding, I got a message from her bridesmaid group chat asking if I could handle paying for a major part of the floral arrangements. I politely declined and said I would help by volunteering for setup. That evening, at a small pre-wedding family gathering, Lily went off in front of everyone about how she didn't understand why I wouldn't support her in her biggest life event and implied that I was putting money above family. She mentioned the exact amount she wanted me to contribute. Everyone looked uncomfortable. I tried to explain my financial situation and how I have been helping in other ways, but she interrupted and accused me of making excuses. The tension at the wedding was palpable. She refused to sit next to me at the rehearsal dinner and gave me the cold shoulder during photos. The actual wedding day, she made a speech thanking everyone who contributed financially, especially those who made it possible, while glancing at me in a way that was obviously meant to shame me. My parents whispered that I should have just paid, but I felt humiliated and frustrated. I spent the evening helping guests and managing logistics, but I felt invisible. After the wedding, she continued to make passive-aggressive comments about how helpful money is versus mere effort. I told her that I loved her and that I tried to help in ways I could, but she accused me of being bitter and jealous. Friends who attended started asking me if I was okay because they noticed how awkward the situation was. I am honestly conflicted. On one hand, I feel like I stood up for my boundaries, but on the other, I can't shake the guilt of how public and humiliating it all became. Some family members have suggested I apologize for not supporting her fully, but I don't want to admit to something I didn't do wrong financially. I'm starting to avoid family events because I feel like she has been gossiping behind my back. So, AITA for refusing to pay for my sister's wedding and then being upset that she embarrassed me in front of family and friends? The story is long because it involves months of build-up and the fallout, but the core issue is whether I was genuinely being unsupportive or if I had every right to maintain my financial boundaries. Character count: 6,321. Would you like me to craft another story with a different family dynamic or conflict? AITA for refusing to attend my friend's destination wedding because she asked me to lie to my partner? I, 29F, have been best friends with Samantha, 30F, since college. We've shared everything over the years, from relationship dramas to career moves, and I genuinely consider her one of the most important people in my life. That said, her upcoming wedding has put me in an impossible position, and I need an outside perspective because I feel like I might be the jerk. Samantha is getting married in 2 months, and she decided on a destination wedding in Italy. When she first told me, I was thrilled. I've always loved traveling, and I was looking forward to sharing this experience with her. My partner, Mark, 32M, who I've been with for 4 years, was also excited and asked if he could come. Samantha initially said yes, but then things started getting weird. About 6 weeks ago, Samantha pulled me aside and told me that she didn't want Mark to attend the wedding because he didn't fit the vibe of her wedding party. I asked her what that meant exactly, and she said that Mark is too blunt and doesn't get her friend's sense of humor, implying he would ruin the dynamic. I was shocked because Mark is normally extremely polite, funny, and well-liked by most people. I tried to reason with her, saying that he's my partner, and it would be incredibly hurtful to exclude him, but she insisted. Then came the part that made me realize this was more than just a personality clash. Samantha asked me to tell Mark that he couldn't go because the cost is too high and that it was just a girls' trip, even though she knew we could afford it, and Mark has been excited about the trip for months. She even suggested that I frame it nicely so he wouldn't be upset. Essentially, she wanted me to lie to my partner about why he couldn't attend. I refused immediately. I told her I wouldn't lie to Mark and that he would be going with me or I wouldn't go at all. Samantha got extremely angry and said I was being selfish, that she had worked hard on this wedding, and that I was choosing my partner over our friendship. She also told me she would move on without me if I didn't comply. The situation escalated when she started sending passive-aggressive texts, like, "Hope you don't miss out on a once-in-a-lifetime experience for your boyfriend," and "I guess our friendship isn't as important as your relationship." I tried to explain that it's not about her or the wedding, but about honesty and boundaries. She replied that I was overreacting and that friends support each other no matter what. I spoke to Mark about the situation, and he was understandably upset that his presence was being intentionally blocked and that I might have been pressured into lying. He urged me to prioritize honesty, which I completely agreed with. I then told Samantha clearly that I would not attend if she expected me to leave him behind or lie about it. This caused a huge fallout. Samantha unfollowed me on social media, stopped responding to my messages, and even called some mutual friends to complain about me. Some of our friends have messaged me, saying I should just go and keep the peace, But the idea of lying to Mark and excluding him deliberately doesn't sit right with me. I also worry that if I do go without him, it will create long-term resentment and hurt my relationship. To complicate matters, Samantha's fiancé, Derek, seems aware of the situation but hasn't said much. I suspect he doesn't want to get involved, or he agrees with Samantha. I haven't asked him directly. Part of me wonders if I am being dramatic and if this is worth losing a friendship over, but I also feel like she crossed a line by asking me to lie and manipulate my partner. Since this conflict began, I've felt stressed and anxious. I've had dreams where I go to the wedding alone. Everyone looks uncomfortable, and I regret not standing up for Mark. On the other hand, I do genuinely want to be part of her wedding and celebrate her, which is why this feels so awful. Reddit: AITA for refusing to attend my best friend's destination wedding because she asked me to lie to my partner and exclude him, even though it might mean losing our friendship. AITA for refusing to babysit my nephew after my sister moved back in with me unexpectedly. I, 29F, live in a small 2-bedroom apartment in a city a few hours away from where I grew up. I work full-time as a graphic designer and have built a pretty structured routine that works for me. I live alone, and for the past few years, I've been very careful about maintaining boundaries, especially when it comes to family. My parents live out of state, and I've always been the one my sister, Olivia, 26F, turns to when she's in trouble. Olivia has always had a chaotic life. She moves frequently, changes jobs often, and tends to make impulsive decisions. She has a 5-year-old son, Liam, and recently she got divorced. I usually try to help, but I have limits, and I've made those clear over the years. I've let her stay for a few days here and there, helped with temporary childcare, and given financial advice, but I've never taken on a full-time parental role for her child. About 3 weeks ago, Olivia called me late at night, panicked and crying. She told me she had to leave her apartment immediately because her landlord was evicting her and she didn't know where to go. She said she had no money for a new place and insisted I had to let her move in. I was taken aback. I told her I couldn't have her and Liam moving in permanently without any planning. I asked about temporary arrangements like a friend, an Airbnb, or my parents helping, but she said everyone else was unavailable. After hours of back and forth, I reluctantly agreed to let her stay for a week, thinking it would be short-term until she figured something out. She showed up the next morning with all of Liam's things packed in her car. I helped her move in and set up the guest room, but the reality of the situation quickly became overwhelming. Olivia expected me to adjust my schedule to her needs immediately, and she assumed I would handle childcare whenever she wanted to leave the apartment. It started small. She asked me to watch Liam for a couple of hours while she ran errands. I agreed once or twice, but soon she was asking me to babysit during my work hours, which I couldn't do. I explained that I have deadlines and can't just drop everything to watch a 5-year-old. Olivia got frustrated and started guilt-tripping me, saying, "I thought family helped each other. You don't care about Liam, do you?" I reminded her that I've always helped, but she was demanding more than I can reasonably provide. Things escalated when she began rearranging my apartment without asking. She moved furniture to make a play area for Liam, left toys all over the living room, and even started cooking meals in my kitchen without cleaning afterward. I asked her politely to respect my space, but she brushed it off, saying, "It's just temporary, calm down." Her attitude made me feel like my home wasn't mine anymore. A week turned into 2, and Olivia still hadn't found a place. She was pressuring me to watch Liam full-time while she looked for work and housing. She even implied that if I didn't help, she might have to take Liam back to her ex-husband, which she framed as emotionally damaging for him. I told her point-blank that I couldn't take full responsibility for Liam's care, that she needed to make other arrangements. She got angry, shouted, and accused me of being selfish and uncaring. I tried to compromise. I offered to watch Liam a few hours a day on the weekend or help pay for a babysitter if she couldn't manage, but she refused all offers. She insisted I could just figure it out and continued to guilt-trip me. Meanwhile, the apartment was getting messy, and I was constantly stressed trying to keep my work life and personal space intact. My parents got involved after Olivia called them, crying and saying I was refusing to help her in a crisis. They told me I should step up for family and that I was being heartless. I explained the situation calmly, emphasizing that I had offered reasonable support, but that she was asking for full-time childcare and disrupting my life. My parents argued that I should just sacrifice my comfort for the sake of family. The situation reached a breaking point when Olivia demanded I watch Liam for an entire week so she could go to a work retreat she hadn't told me about until the last minute. I refused, saying I could not take on full-time childcare for a week. She screamed at me, packed her things, and left, threatening that I had ruined her life and Liam's. Since then, Olivia has barely spoken to me, and Liam has been asking when I'll play with him again. My parents are upset and think I overreacted, while my friends say I'm justified in maintaining boundaries. I feel torn because I do care about Olivia and Liam, but I also know that if I let her take over my apartment and force me into full-time babysitting, it would cause immense stress and resentment. I've realized that I can't solve all of her problems, and supporting her doesn't mean sacrificing my own life and mental health. I'm trying to figure out if I was wrong to stand firm, even though it caused a huge rift in our relationship. So, AITA for refusing to babysit my nephew after my sister moved back in with me unexpectedly. Thank you for watching until the end. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss new videos also. Leave a comment. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Your support and engagement mean a lot to me. See you in the next video.